from a cycling trip in Norway where I spent about 27 days. The longest cycling trip that I've personally done, so it was about 2,500 kilometers horizontally and about 30 kilometers vertically. I went from the city of Bergen, which is sort of towards the south, all the way up to a city in the Arctic Circle, a place called Tromsø. In this video I'm just going to share with you 5 things that I learned from my month cycling through Norway. So one thing I learned when I was in Norway is that there are loads of tunnels. There's actually about 1,000 tunnels in Norway. So something to bear in mind is that although you're allowed to go through some of the tunnels as a cyclist, lots of them you're not allowed to go through. But there is a very useful website that I'll link to below, and that website contains a map and it shows you all of the tunnels you can and cannot use when you're cycling through Norway. One thing you'll notice when you're approaching these tunnels in Norway is that there's often like a side road or a side path that you can take that will avoid the tunnel itself. They can be, on one hand, very dilapidated. Often they haven't been maintained for decades and they might be sort of covered in rocks and branches and trees, and they're probably cracked. But sometimes they can lead to amazing places as well, and can even provide incredible places to camp. For example, on one occasion I went down one of these paths and it led into this pine forest, which happened to be next to the deepest lake in Europe. I had this place entirely to myself, so decided to spend the night there. Okay, this one might not come as a surprise at all, but it rains a lot in Norway. I was there in June/July. I sort of thought, it's summer, it's probably going to be okay, but it's probably rained for about 25 out of the 27 days that I was there for. So I spent a lot of time cold and wet. In fact, Bergen, I think, is the wettest city in Europe. But on the plus side, for a country that is so far north, it's actually a lot warmer than countries at similar latitude. So even though you'll be wet all the time, you won't necessarily be as cold as you might expect from a country that is partially in the Arctic Circle. One really cool thing about Norway is that you can actually camp in the wild legally. There are some rules surrounding this. For example, you can't be within 150 meters of the nearest house. And of course you have to be respectful of the environment, don't break anything, don't leave anything behind. But yes, you can camp legally anywhere in the wild in Norway. Having said that, it can be very difficult to actually find places to camp, because the country is so mountainous that often you go a very long time without seeing somewhere that's flat enough for you to actually pitch your tent. And when you do find somewhere, because it rains so much, you might not be able to pitch your tent because the ground is so wet. However, usually if you're persistent enough and if you're willing to keep going, you can find some really cool places. I had some really nice nights camping wild in pine forests or by fjords. So yes, as long as you stick with it for a while, you'll usually find somewhere to pitch your tent in the wild. it difficult to find somewhere to camp in the wild, or maybe you just don't feel like it, maybe you want to get a shower, have something warm to eat, use laundry facilities or Wi-Fi, then of course you can also just go to a campsite. Even though Norway itself is really expensive, it's one of the most expensive countries in the world, the campsites weren't that bad. I think the most I paid was about 300 crowns. The least I paid was about 50, and usually it was somewhere sort of 15 to 20. So in addition to wild camping, camping in actual campsites is a great option when you're cycling in Norway too. This one is quite specific. But probably if you've looked up pictures of Norway, you will have seen this amazing rock known as Trolltunga. It's this rock that sticks out from the top of the cliff, and then there's this just huge drop below it. And it's probably one of the most popular sort of tourist destinations in the country, and it's actually one of the first places that I headed to when I arrived in Norway. I can't recommend taking a touring bike up there, but to be honest, it was one of the most fun things I did there. I got a lot of funny looks from people, and I got to speak to a lot of people because they were sort of interested in what I was doing, taking this big, heavy touring bike 1,000 meters up to this cliff top. So yeah, I can't recommend taking a touring bike to Trolltunga, but I had fun doing it. Have to bring your bike with you. Like I did when I went to Trolltunga, I did some really nice hikes later on in the trip where I didn't take my bike with me, and got to see some beautiful beaches. Especially in the north of Norway, you get some very nice white sandy beaches with these incredibly sort of blue turquoise waters. I also did some nice hikes up mountains and saw some really cool shaped mountains. So if you can find the time to take a day off and do some hiking in the middle of your cycling trip, I would definitely recommend doing that.
What do I believe? What makes me feel it to write you this song? 2 hours a day, 5 months and a year. Oh, I loved you too long. You keep blowing me out, I keep holding you in. I keep asking myself, oh, why do you still hurt? Why do you still hurt?
The route from the north to the south is a very popular cycling route. So if you're anywhere on the coast between the north and the south, then you're probably going to see loads of other cyclists. So if you do this trip too, or something similar, there's a good chance you'll meet some other cyclists along the way.
You keep blowing me out, I keep holding you in. I keep asking myself, oh, why do you still hurt? Why do you still hurt? Oh, 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 oh.
5 things, or 5 of the things that I learned whilst I was spending a month cycle touring in Norway. It's an amazing place to ride. The scenery is consistently beautiful. The weather kind of sucks a lot of the time, but you really do appreciate it when the sun comes out. So I hope you found this somewhat useful or interesting at least. And if you have any questions, let me know. And if you go to Norway to cycle or not to cycle, I hope you have a great time.
I pray for the night to go easy on me.